Hey, hello everyone and welcome to Extreme Graphics Tech. My name is Angelo and today we are going to be talking about what you see in the description of the video, which is FSR 3. And well, as you know, FSR 3 is the answer from AMD to the DLSS 3 from NVIDIA, which is not other than frame generation. As you know, NVIDIA launched a frame generation with the RTX 4000 series, and it only works on 4000 series at the moment, at least, and there has no been plans or announcement ever to make it work on RTX 2000 or 3000 series. However, AMD is launching FSR 3, which is GPU agnostic, which means that it can work on any range of GPUs. Well, any is a very broad thing. We are going to be discussing that, but it will work on Nvidia and also AMD, and it technically should work also on Intel GPUs. So now, of course, the only two games that are launching today that has FSR 3 are Forspoken and Immortal of Aveum. I only have Forspoken, so that's the one I'm going to be using for testing. And this test is not going to be like a very pixel peeping test. It's more like, what do I feel as a player, just, for normal viewing, normal experience, because at the end of the day, I think that is what matters. Of course, it's important to, pixel peeping like, channels like Digital Foundry, because it will teach and we will learn a lot about how it works and, the sacrifices that image needs to be done and so on. But at the end of the day, what we care is about the end user experience, and that is what I'm going to be talking today. So the first thing I did when I knew that Forspoken update was launched was testing with the RTX 4090, just to see how it works and just have a general feeling. And I have to say that the game looked quite good. I was amazed at the quality of FSR 3 in these games. I am not sure. I have to say I feel like, but I couldn't get a confirmation that FSR 3 also brings improvement to the super resolution part of the algorithm. So, as you know, AMD uses an algorithm and uses normal GPU power, while the DLSS 2 super resolution uses AI to improve the image. So one of the problems is that AMD has always had like lower quality image when it comes to super resolution. It's not at the same level as the DLSS, and this is more evident the lower the input resolution is, because when you're using 4K with quality mode with FSR, it's honestly very indistinguishable from the original image. But when you go to something like performance, which puts 1080p as the input image and output to 4K, then you can see things falling apart, like a lot of shimmering, a lot of things breaking and so on. And one of the things that DLSS does much better is temporal stabilization, which the image look more cleaner even if the image is getting a 1080p. So one of the biggest problems FSR had for a while is this occlusion, shimmering, this occlusion artifacts. When you move the camera and something's obstructing something else and that other thing is occluded and then it comes to view, then it shimmers for a little bit. So in a game where you're constantly moved, you can see around the player normally a lot of shimmering, and this seems to have been reduced in this version. This is still not perfect, there is still some of it, but I think it's better, and I may be making this up, it's a placebo effect, but that's what I got from it. Here is a clear example of what I mean. If you see here, this is using the DLSS quality mode, and you can see that the grass and the character, around the character, everything is very clear, very stable. However, when we switch over to the FSR version, you can see that the grass is shimmering a lot. There is a lot of vibration, and you can see the occlusion, the disocclusion problems that occur around the character. You can see there that there is some issues going on. I put the limit at 60 FPS just to show this clearly in terms of how it works. And let's try again. You can see here, look at the grass, look at the around the character. Hopefully the YouTube compression doesn't destroy completely, but you can see here that it's very stable, very clear. And when we go to normal, to FSR, then the story is different. It's very shimmery, as you can see. And I'm doing this without having to zoom in, because I said the idea is not to pixel peeping, but to show how is normal gameplay. However, what we are interested more in this video is about the frame generation. So I have to say that when I was playing on the RTX 4090, the frame generation was a very good, and I couldn't discern any artifacts. I was using 4K quality mode with frame generation, and because the input was good, the output was very good. So yes, it did improve my frames. All things considered, I may play in this way. If I cannot, unfortunately, you cannot mix DLSS with frame generation here from FSR, so it's one thing or the other. So I need to check because the game has improved a lot in terms of performance. So I don't know, maybe DLSS will be more than enough. This example here is me playing with frame generation at 4K with quality mode, but I limited to 60 FPS because I was trying to force to be able to see more of the frame artifacts when generated. But as you can see, even in this test, it's very stable and I cannot discern really any issues whatsoever when it comes to frame generation in this game or in this particular quality. I think frame generation actually works better than the super resolution from the same Fidelity FX suite. So obviously I was very excited to test more, and I wanted to see what happens. For example, will it make it more playable? Can I achieve 60 FPS on a GTX 1060? So I put the 1060 in the test benchmark system. Unfortunately, you can activate frame generation on a 1060. For some reason, I don't know if it's a bug or the technology detects what sort of GPU you have, but on the 1060 there was no option from the game to be able to activate frame generation. The only thing you have access to is FSR, which is still good obviously because Nvidia doesn't have any sort of support for that card, but I felt a little bit bummed down because I wanted, these technologies, I wanted to see how much they will help all GPUs achieve better frame rates, but in this case it was simply not possible. So then I tested the recommended from Nvidia, from AMD, the lowest one. So I tested on the RTX 2000 series, and on the RTX 2060 I was able to activate frame generation, and I was able to bring the game from around 24 FPS to around 55 to 60 FPS, which obviously makes the game a lot more playable. However, I have to say this. While I was testing, and I'm going to be showing images of this, and you've been looking at other images and other things we're going to be showing around, I have to say that I got into a conundrum here because yes, we were able to get to around 60 FPS, but this means lowering FSR, putting FSR into balance of performance mode in order to improve the frame rate to over 30 FPS to then activate frame generation. But at this point, by using FSR performance, the image started to get very bad. So we know FSR is not very good when we want to use certain resolutions. So a 1440p with an input resolution that is basically 720p, when you use a performance, the image started to break. And if on top of that you put frame generation, then the end result image quality wise wasn't very good. Yes, we were getting around 60 FPS, but I don't think it's something I will play. So then I wanted to do something extreme, and I tested DLSS 2 and the RTX 2060 in ultra performance to achieve kind of the same raw frame rate I was getting with FSR with frame generation. And I don't know guys, but I honestly think DLSS 2 ultra performance looks better than FSR 3 in performance mode with frame generation active. So I don't know how much people from the RTX series of card are really going to enjoy using this, unless you're already on 60 FPS without any sort of image reconstruction, and then you activate the DLSS frame generation. But if you're under 30 FPS and you have to start using image reconstruction in order to get it to a playable frame rate plus frame generation, I think it's better for you to just stick to DLSS, and even going ultra performance from my point of view gave me a better result in image quality wise than using the AMD technology. Of course, I cannot blame or fault AMD for this. At the end of the day, at least they are supporting this frame generation technology on RTX 2000 and 3000 cards, while Nvidia is only giving us the option on RTX 4000. So it will be very hypocritical of me to, say AMD, you are bad because this is not running correctly. What's the point of having this in these cards when the image quality at the end of the day is not very good? Because it's better than nothing, and I think everyone can just check and realize how it works. So for people using AMD cards, I tested with an RX 6600 just to see, the improvements, and I was quite interesting, and I have to say I like the results, because obviously with an AMD you don't have access to DLSS, so obviously you still want to play higher frame rates and have a good image quality. So not having any of this technology, it will force you to go to very low resolutions. And as you can see here, well, I honestly believe that probably this may not help every car or every low-end car. Probably on a 2080 or something like that, then it will be better to use frame generation, because you don't have to resort to such a low FSR to get playable quality. So in this case, particularly the RTX 2060, I don't know, it's going to be a case-by-case scenario where you have to select if you prefer the image quality of DLSS at ultra performance, with the limitations it has, but more stable image, or the shimmery mess that becomes FSR with everything up, but the higher frame rate. So in this case, the trade-off is quite big. I believe that on a 2080, 2070, where you don't need to put FSR on such a high level like performance or ultra performance, you can use just quality. Adding frame generation on top is then going to be the option to go, because that will make more sense, because the image quality will remain higher than going to ultra performance, for example. In fact, I tested on the RX 6600 at 480p just to see how much frame rate I could get. This is with everything maxed out, with ray tracing and everything, and I will get around 60 FPS. And not just that, as you can see here in this 480p footage, you can see that the CPU is being utilized even at some points up to 70 to 80%, which means that we have a lot of CPU utilization, and also the GPU is very high. And at this point, our system is limited by both the CPU and the GPU. So then, obviously, I wanted to see the proper resolution I was going to use. In this case, is 1440p. So I went to the settings and I set the resolution to 1440p. Now everything looks nice and crispy, as you can see here. The game takes a little bit to notice the change, but as you can see, we have a nice 1440p native image that looks great, but we don't have the same performance. We have lost 2/3 of the performance essentially, because we went from 60 to 20 something. So this is evidently not playable. So now, by using frame generation and Fidelity Effect Super Resolution, I was able to play the same game at over 60 FPS with very good results at 1440p. So imagine that I'm getting better results at 1440p thanks to FSR, Super Resolution, and frame generation than playing at native 480p. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, obviously I would prefer to play this way than play on 480p. You have very good image quality, not perfect, but certainly light years ahead of 4080p if you want to achieve those frame rates. So yeah, this is, I think, I am honestly impressed by the technology. I think it works. I wish it worked on more GPUs, but well, I can't blame AMD or, say anything wrong about it, because at least they are supporting more than NVIDIA is. Of course, the NVIDIA solution is image quality wise better, but if you don't have access to them, then it doesn't matter how good it is, because at the end of the day, you have to use what is available to you. And in this case, well, FSR3 brings quite good thing to the table that I think many people are going to enjoy. So yeah, depending on the situation, you have to play around, you know, test, go, you know, if you like this. In the case of the RTX 2060, for example, in this particular case, think ultra performance DLSS brings better image quality and almost the same results. But in other games or other GPU combinations, it can bring, probably it could be the other way around, and so you can experiment with that. And for people with AMD cards, obviously, it's going to be their best option and only option, to be honest. But it's not a bad option at all. So hope you guys like this video. I think, you know, FSR is great, and I hope to see it implemented in more and more titles. So as always, thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.